Hi, this is Glenda, and today I wanted to show you how to prepare a multi-batch of lye solution. I do this when I know which soaps I will be making and I have the recipes ready. Sometimes I master batch the lye water solution instead, but today I want to show you how to multi-batch. I start by putting on my neutral gloves, which in my opinion they work better than latex gloves. I have here also two stainless spoons, a silicone spatula, a respirator, and I'm going to include links to some of these products in case you're curious to see where I got them. I'm going to put them in the description box below. I also have a face shield. In the background I also have a scale, and I have printed out the recipes of the soap for which I will be doing the multi-batching. And of course I have the lye. I usually get the sodium hydroxide from either Nature's Garden or Essential Depot. I actually have containers from both of them, and I think I'm going to be finishing one and starting the new one. In addition, I like to use potassium hydroxide in my recipe. I only use 5% of it, just enough to help the soap become more bubbly. I like using these Rubbermaid containers to keep the lye water solution, and as you can see, there's already water in them. I already measure the distilled water because that's a pretty simple thing to do, and I also wrote with a Sharpie the name of the recipe that I'm keeping in that container. That way when it's time for me to make this soap, I just need to look for that specific container. I also keep a list of the weight of the empty containers, but I also like to write it down on the container itself just for ease and convenience. And once I write it down, I'm going to tear out the weight on the scale, and then I'm going to measure both lights into the container. You can also do this outside. It is especially advised if you don't have proper ventilation where you're working. I used to do that when I started off, but sometimes it's just too hot in the city where I live. So hot that while I'm wearing the goggles, they will become foggy, and it just wasn't even, I couldn't even see what I was doing. So I rather do it inside, and I keep window open, which is actually the window where most of the light is coming from for this video. Once I have measured both lights, I'm going to add them to the water, and this is something that I usually do close to the window, like I'm right next to it. Today, because of the video that I'm making, I'm doing it on the table. I usually add the light gradually to the water as I stir it in. I don't like adding it all at once because sometimes it goes straight to the bottom and then it becomes, or it forms a crust at the bottom of the container, which is not ideal because then you have to break it down. At this point, the lye water solution has been made. I'm going to continue to stir it and to get all of the lye pieces and granules that are in the container to make sure that everything is dissolved. And when this happens, there is a chemical reaction that starts going on and the water starts warming up. It heats up so much that there will be vapors. These are the vapors that you don't want to breathe in, and that's why having a respirator is important. For this particular recipe, I'm going to add a little bit of Tosa silk. This is supposed to add some silkiness to the soap, and I'm just adding some strands, and the heat of the water is going to dissolve them. Whatever doesn't get dissolved, I'm going to strain out, but usually all of it gets dissolved. You can see here that it is 214 Fahrenheit or 102 degrees Celsius, so it's pretty hot. I am blessed to have a craft room where I make soap, so I usually can leave my lye water solution uncovered on the windowsill until it has cooled down without having to worry too much about it. However, if there were children in the area, like if my nephews or nieces were visiting, I will tell them not to get anywhere close to it because this is a highly corrosive and burning solution. It is dangerous. Once the water has cooled down enough, I can cover it and seal it to further prevent any accidents or me, dropping them or knocking them down, which wouldn't be good, and I have done it. If you do this outside and there is wildlife or you have pets that may come in contact with your light water solution, I would advise you to take precautions so that it is protected or out of reach from either of them. Another type of container that works well is the takeout plastic containers with a lid, and I'm using the small one here, usually for the size of soaps that I make, like a 2-pound soap. The light water solution fits just about right on these ones or on the Rubbermaids. In this particular one, I didn't weigh the water in advance, so I'm going to do that now. I am using distilled water. I live in a part of the country where the water is very hard. In other words, it has a lot of minerals in it. So that doesn't go well with soap making because all those minerals, which usually have some sort of metals in it, will react with the oils and will cause DOS in the final soap. So for me, it is best to use distilled water. This is how the light water solution containers look. I rotate them. Once they have cooled down, I move them down, and then I put the freshest ones right by the window. This day was very windy, so I kept the window halfway closed, but enough so that the vapors can go out. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully I will see you next week. Bye.